Megan Fox.
What Megan has created is this amazing fantasy world that really caters to the core of her audience.
She captured worldwide attention in the blockbuster sensation Transformers.
That's when people said, "Who is that girl?" She was named on every hot list, every Maxim magazine, this is the hottest girl around.
She's held people's attention with flashy photo shoots and racy interviews.
Megan has a reputation that she started, that she's a little bit of a bad girl and that she loves sex and she's a little bit promiscuous.
Did you get to decide? You better pen down and get the side of this dress.
I curse and I've made mention of sex before and I make jokes about it, which people find outrageous.
Megan Fox can be perceived in any number of ways depending on who you speak with.
I feel like everything that comes out of my mouth becomes sensationalized by the media.
Being a sex symbol, it's almost like being a product, like a can of Coke or something. How much of that is fabricated, how much of that is real, I'd never be able to tell you. She's a very interesting personality that way.
She's the puzzle that fascinates pop culture pundits. She's the enigma.
By the time Megan Fox was 22, she was a sex symbol.
Everybody was Googling her, everybody was looking at pictures of her.
People knew her as the hot vixen from the first two Transformers films. And she was about to star in a teen horror flick called Jennifer's Body.
When Megan was doing publicity for Jennifer's Body, she told a story about having had an affair with a female stripper. And of course, the press went wild, the internet exploded, and people were like, what? She's bisexual, what's going on here?
It was a very elaborate story. This stripper named Nikita who worked at a club called The Body Shop. And that she would go and she would get lap dances so that Nikita, she would get to know her better. She would tell her things like, you're better than this, you can do more.
Wow, did it ignite a lot of discussion and talk in the Hollywood community about that?
Nikita is not real. Nikita is a personality that Megan made up, and she said that she was, kind of playing a game with this reporter.
It was a story that left fans wondering what's real and what's not when it comes to Megan Fox. Megan Fox was born May 16, 1986, into a world far different from Hollywood. Her family had a small home in Rockwood, Tennessee, an 8-square-mile town with a population of around 5,000 people.
Her father was a parole officer, and her parents separated when she was young, and they eventually divorced.
With her dad, Franklin, out of the picture, Megan spent most of her time living in an imaginary world created by Hollywood.
I most vividly remember The Wizard of Oz. I wanted to be Dorothy for many years of my life, and I made my mom call me Dorothy. I wouldn't answer her or listen to her if she called me Megan, because that wasn't my name, for about a year, from 5 to 6.
When Megan's mom told her Dorothy was really an actress, Megan made up her mind about her future.
I always told my mother that I wanted to be an actress. And I think maybe it started with Judy Garland and Wizard of Oz, but I've just never had any desire to do anything else, and I'm not really sure why. She said from that point on, I knew I wanted to be an actress. So her mother was pretty supportive of this. She took dance lessons, she was in choir, she did a ton of activities.
She would put on little performances in the living room. She would dance, she would act, and she put on these shows all the time from the time she was a young girl.
Megan maintained her interest in acting, even though her home life was changing. Her mother married Tony Tanacchio, And when Megan was 10, the family moved to Port St. Lucie, Florida.
Port St. Lucie has a small town atmosphere. Not like New York, it's not like Miami. It's a sprawling small town.
Here, Megan continued to pursue acting.
She was in numerous theater productions, one of which was Godspell at the Lyric Theater, which is a well-known theater in Stuart, Florida. And to be able to perform on stage there is quite an honor.
When Megan was 13, she entered a talent and beauty competition, which put contestants through mock auditions.
She won 2 first place, one in television commercial and one in photography, and 3 other honorable mentions. Those were big awards, and after she won those awards, her mother said, we have to go for this. We've got to go full steam ahead and see what she can do, see if she can make it in this business.
When you're 12, 13, 14, 15, you're doing a lot of catalog. You'll get the occasional cereal commercial or the grocery store family type of spot. In one case, I brought Megan in for a film project, which was short film that matches a high school writer with a famous director, and in this case it was David Frankel, who directed Devil Wears Prada. She definitely stood out. David said, love to use her, but she's so beautiful. I don't want to offend anybody. I mean, I don't want to cause a scene.
Megan didn't get that part, but she did catch a lot of flack from her peers for wanting to be a star.
Port St. Lucie at the time was a smaller town. They weren't used to actors and models in the neighborhood. Going to school and seeing someone that's also in a magazine or on a commercial or on a TV show, people are scared of what they don't understand, and they can be cruel about it.
When you're growing up in high school, other girls, they don't like beautiful girls talking about how they're going to be famous and rich and being, big Hollywood starlets one day.
She wasn't that popular in her high school. She said that people used to throw ketchup packets and mustard packets at her, and sometimes she would take her tray and take it to the restroom and eat there. And she said that, high school, they're like vultures. Once someone senses that you're the weak one, everyone preys on you.
To make matters worse, Megan worked at a fruit smoothie stand where she had to dress up like a banana.
There was a whole circle cut out. So you could see her face, you could see clearly who she was. High school students used to come by, drive by, back and forth, and yell obscenities at her.
Megan also had problems at home.
Megan was raised very modestly. She was raised by her mother and her stepfather, who, by her own admission, were very, very strict. They would not let her date at all.
Her stepfather was very religious. He was Pentecostal, and she talks about that and about how she always wanted to rebel just because she didn't like authority.
She was never allowed to have friends over at her house. She was never allowed to have boyfriends. And, she kind of was alone most of the time.
Megan rebelled against her strict parents.
She used to dress like a Barbie doll. She would wear the smallest clothes possible, and she wanted to dye her hair blonde, and her mother said, not a good idea. You're a brunette, that's what makes you special. And she said, well, but I still put sun in my hair. It was Florida, and I had orange hair for 2 years. She would sneak out of the house. She said she was inventive. She would tie bed sheets together and climb out of her second-floor bedroom window. She said one time she wanted to get out so bad she just jumped.
When you spend a lot of time in your formative years alone or in a very strict household, you just want to rebel, and everything feels a little bit like a push. And I'm sure that's how she felt when she was growing up.
Megan would soon have a chance to rebel against her family's conservative values and express her sex appeal, thanks to director Michael Bay. When Megan Fox was 16, she met established agent Sharon Lane.
When I met her, she had fire. She had a desire to do this. She had the looks. The call came through. They were looking for a young girl. I guess it was 16 years approximately, to work with the Olsen twins.
We're not going to Hawaii today, girls. We're going somewhere much better. I'm taking you to Atlantis.
Megan landed the part of the not-so-likable Brianna Wallace in the direct-to-video movie Holiday in the Sun.
Her mother drove her to Miami, where she auditioned for the part. And while she was doing that, there were other hopefuls auditioning in Hollywood. So she was up against quite a bit of competition.
Excuse me. Oh, were you in line? Brianna Wallace, messages please.
Certainly, Miss Wallace. And how is your father today?
In the casino, wondering why this is taking so long?
She was a mean girl. She was the spoiled, rich, nasty, sort of alpha female that picked on the nice, sweet, blonde Olsen twins.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. And thank you. Next time, take a number.
Filming her part in Holiday in the Sun took only 8 days, so it was a very fast shoot.
Look, as long as you're with me, you won't get into trouble.
I didn't know if I was going to meet a prima donna or if I was going to meet a regular teenager. And to my surprise, she was just a regular, normal person. You know, life was normal, even after being in a movie, with some of the biggest stars around.
That was great.
She said that she was in awe of them. She said they were so down to earth and friendly, and she felt comfortable at once.
I'm going to go with her.
Okay. All right, take care of your sister. Funny thing is that she was one time caught shoplifting during her wild teen years in Walmart, and she was stealing Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen makeup products. So it's kind of ironic that her first role would be in an Olsen movie.
It was a role that Megan doesn't brag about.
One of the things that I think is really hilarious is that she was interviewed if she'd recently watched Holiday in the Sun, and she says, "Oh God, no, I'd rather kill myself." I just think that's hysterical.
I do remember being in my living room visiting my family. I heard a very familiar voice, and I turned around, and it was Megan and the Olsen twins and for Holiday in the Sun, and it was a surprise.
Is it important?
She's kind of private. She keeps a lot to herself.
The movie didn't do much to change Megan's situation at home.
I remember the mother telling me that she wanted her daughter to have as normal a life as possible, and that's why they stayed in Port St. Lucie instead of going to the big city.
Megan would have to settle for work in Florida, which came in the form of the TV series Ocean Ave. Filmed in Miami, but set to air in Sweden.
It was basically a soap opera-ish slice of South Beach at the time.
A casting call went out for a gorgeous teen to play the character of Ione Starr.
We saw a lot of people. She was one of those people that didn't need any help. She just was who she was, and she fit the role perfectly.
The role of her love interest went to Megan's friend, Sean Patrick.
So it was hour-long, 130 episodes, and we shot that over the course of a year. And it was low budget. It was guerrilla filmmaking at times, you know. It was pretty intense.
By middle of high school, I believe it was junior year, she went into homeschooling, and that was at that point truly needed for her career.
It was also during her junior year that director Michael Bay came to town.
The big thing that stands out that I cast Megan in is when we were doing Bad Boys 2.
Bay wanted good-looking extras for a party scene.
Michael Bay wasn't finding the right girl. And I remember saying, we're gonna go meet him out at a helicopter pad. And I brought Megan and another girl out there. And he looked at Megan and he looked at the other girl and said, good.
Michael Bay picked Megan for the part.
He saw something. She has it. It's clearly that it factor that we talk about when you meet somebody. She has it. And he capitalized on it.
Every time Michael was shooting and rearranging shots, and he always wanted to make sure that she was in that shot.
She earned $500, and most of what she shot wound up on the cutting room floor. But she did learn a valuable lesson. Sex sells.
Megan has always been more adult-like than her years belie. Megan was 16. She was dancing. She was enjoying it. She was playing with her sexuality, and she had a blast. Megan was having more fun than she was in Holiday in the Sun. Megan is not looking for cookie-cutter success stories. Megan would just assume get out there and be an extra and dance her way to success.
Not long after Bad Boys 2 wrapped, Ocean Avenue was canceled, and work opportunities in Florida dried up for Megan.
She always felt like she was ready to move on to bigger and better things. She knew from a very young age she wanted to be an actress, and she probably knew that wasn't going to happen if she stayed in Florida.
Honestly, there's no comparison between the Miami acting scene and the Hollywood acting scene. Miami is a very gentle playground for the actor, and LA arena is kind of like the Gladiators arena. You gotta go out there and fight, and you gotta fight your way to the top.
Though still a minor, Megan was determined to get out of Florida and try to make it in Hollywood. When Megan Fox was 17 years old, her credits included an Olsen Twins movie, an obscure Swedish TV series set in Miami, and a gig as an extra in a Michael Bay film. But she still wasn't famous.
At one point, she begged her mother to take her to LA for sitcom season, where all the casting went on.
Megan's mom had the faith in Megan, and fortunately, Darlene made it happen. And it's a very expensive proposition, by the way, as well.
When she was moved out to LA and started auditioning for things there, and she was still underage, she saw what she could create, and the minute she turned 18, it was like, boom, here I am, world. She figured it out.
Soon after moving, she got a part in the Lindsay Lohan film, Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen. Her role was a lot like the one she had 2 years earlier in Holiday in the Sun.
Megan is okay with playing the bad girl role. Other stars want to play the virginal girl, but Megan's okay with playing the girl. She's okay with being mean and being beautiful.
I don't know if people try to typecast me as that. I think I just sort of, for whatever reason, fell into playing a mean girl, and I think more so because there are many more blonde actresses than there are brunette actresses. And so the chances of the heroine being blonde are statistically greater, and so then you want a visual opposite to portray the evil girl. And I am that opposite, I guess.
Not only was Megan once again the mean girl, she was also playing second fiddle to a more established star.
She wasn't that excited about working with Lindsay Lohan. However, she knew it was a big role.
Megan said that Lindsay Lohan had to be nice to her because Megan looked older than Lindsay, and Lindsay needed her to buy her cigarettes. I think Megan Fox always has an implication when she says things. I suppose we could take it to mean that she was only nice to her for cigarettes.
She has admitted that she didn't get along with her. And she fully admits that she's better friends with men than women, because there's sort of like a beauty competition with women, and she's not going to have any of that.
The movie earned about $30 million at the box office. Most of its fans were teenage girls. But Megan would soon get a chance to appeal to a male audience when she played a sexy window washer in the sitcom 2.5 Men.
Megan plays that role so well. She knows how to dress it, she knows how to walk it, she knows how to bat her eyes, and she's good at it.
And she fully admits, if she wasn't good looking, she'd be nothing in Hollywood. And she's willing to use her good looks to her advantage, and that's what she's doing.
She was very confident with the role because of the sexuality, and she gets nothing but praise for that.
Striking a pose came easy for Megan, but her agent wanted her to take on roles with more depth. So Lane encouraged her to audition for a part replacing actress Nicole Piaggi in the TV sitcom Hope and Faith.
They were a little concerned about her comedy because she hadn't done enough of it to really take on a series regular role. And at the same time, that role entailed a lot of depth that went outside of the comedy.
When Megan showed up for the audition, she nailed it.
I think as far as project breaks, the first really big break was her being cast on Hope and Faith.
The ambitious, rebellious teen finally got a chance to move to New York and be on her own.
Being in New York on her own, though, it was sort of a first time her mom wasn't with her. It was tough. She felt very much alone in New York. It was a difficult experience, which Megan saw as a prison sentence. But it was my insistence with her, my pressuring her, she agreed, to gain the audience, to learn the ropes, to get in front of the camera, and to really get some grounding.
There was, however, one upside to the role.
Brian Austin Green came and had a bit part in the series. She didn't know who he was. You know, she hadn't grown up watching 90210, which made sense because she was so much younger than him. They're 13 years apart. And she said that they brushed up against each other while taping, and that there was literally an electricity that went through her body and out, and she knew then that they would date.
Megan didn't care what others thought about her older man.
She always liked to rebel, and I think dating Brian Austin Green in some funny way, because he's not an outrageous person, you know, he's not out there partying and getting drunk. She probably liked that there was a 13-year age difference. He had a son. It was very unlike what someone would expect of her.
She hadn't made a lot of friends in New York, and I think that having met Brian on the set, Megan started liking New York just a little bit more. The next real break for her was a phone call I received from FHM to give her a shot, take some photos, and they asked her to be on the cover.
The camera loves Megan Fox. She's got a look that no other actress or actor has.
This was Megan's first featured interview in a major publication.
Megan has a tendency to make controversial statements to the media, to the interviewers, and in some cases I think she's pulling the wool over their eyes.
Megan offered up a surprising number of details about her sex life with Brian.
It creates a kind of a bad girl image, a naughty girl image. It's a little bit of a rebellion. It keeps the public wondering, especially when she says that she got her lover's name tattooed next to her. I mean, that really excites people and then, you know, creates that mystery.
Megan's not one to mince words. Megan's not one to be cautious with what she says. That makes her special and that makes her Megan. But I also find that sometimes it's okay to say less. In fact, that can hold even more mystique and keep your audiences out there wanting more without sacrificing your own integrity. I don't think she would be selling herself out to monitor herself sometimes. When Megan was doing press, especially around the FHM time, I felt the need to guide her, to monitor, to ease up on it.
Megan and her agent continued to butt heads. Until finally, Megan fired Lane.
I do believe that a lot of the reasons that we went our own ways was that she did not want somebody holding her back anymore, making sure to monitor, discreetly monitor those moments, and that she wanted it just a little faster than I was ready to let it happen.
That same year, Hope and Faith was canceled. So Megan moved back to Los Angeles, where she would soon become more famous and more controversial. In 2006, Megan Fox moved back to Los Angeles, where director Michael Bay had a major production in the works.
She owes a lot to Michael Bay. She really does. I mean, when you go even further back to Bad Boys, he spotted her, he saw talent, he saw something, and he capitalized on it and made her somebody.
She came in front of him again and maybe something clicked, but he sees a lot of people, and he's a very difficult guy to please. She earned that role.
The movie, Transformers. The role, Michaela Baines.
Megan's big break was undoubtedly Transformers. That's when people said, "Who is that girl?"
She had instantly, after the Transformers movie, become this pop culture icon. Everybody was Googling her. Everybody was looking at pictures of her. Her stardom was secure.
The film grossed over $700 million worldwide.
You lose perspective and you don't really realize what they're really going to do with it afterwards, and to come in and see everything finished and have the sound finished, it just really blew me away.
Megan Fox was suddenly the focus of a lot of media attention. And so were her tattoos.
Megan has 8 tattoos. She's got the Chinese word for strength on the back of her neck, and she's got a yin and a yang. And the most recent one, it's this beautiful, I mean, I've seen it up close and personal, very beautiful portrait of Marilyn Monroe.
I got that after I completed the first Transformers. I got the Marilyn Monroe tattoo.
Now, of course, it's right on her right forearm, so when people saw it, initially they're like, oh, Megan Fox has this obsession with Marilyn Monroe. Let's read all kinds of things into that.
And I don't know, I've always been intrigued by her because she created a character that she lived behind. So she was always playing a character within a character in all of her movies, which I think is, the psychology behind that is very interesting.
People were trying to read into, oh, this was a beautiful woman, Marilyn, who was desperate to be taken seriously. Ooh, maybe Megan.
Megan's tattoos have also led to another comparison.
Well, everyone loves to compare Megan Fox to Angelina. We're always looking for someone who's the new someone, but it's not completely arbitrary in this case. You know, they have a lot of tattoos. They even have a tattoo that looks very similar with similar placement on both of their shoulder blades.
Did you get the side? You better pan down and get the side of this dress.
It was inevitable that someone as gorgeous as Megan Fox was going to be compared to Angelina Jolie. She and I have actually talked about the comparisons. In fact, she told me once that she actually lightened her hair to a different shade of brown to get rid of the, and these are her words, her black, long, raven-like hair. And I said, oh, you mean the Angelina Jolie hair? And she's like, exactly. It's a really, really, really good quote about Angelina. She says, I'm sure she has no idea who I am, but if I were her, I'd be like, who the is this little bull brat who was in Transformers that's going to be the next me? I don't want to meet her. I'd be embarrassed. So that's typical Megan Fox.
It is what it is. I mean, you know, Shia is the new Tom Hanks, Rihanna's the new Beyonce, everybody's the new somebody, although none of us are any of those people. So it's just, you walk around with it, you live with it.
Despite the comparisons, Megan became a sex symbol in her own right.
FHM magazine in 2008 voted her the hottest woman on the planet with over 9 million votes for Megan Fox. Whoa.
For Megan's next film, it seemed that art was imitating life.
Megan did the little indie film with Simon Pegg, How to Lose Friends and Alienate People.
She played this starlet coming up that just relied on her beauty, and there's this scene where she walks through a pool, just dripping wet, and the paparazzi catch her outside, and all of a sudden, she's a star. So, very parallel to her own life in some ways.
She's very pragmatic about her career, and she sees herself as looking a certain way.
She plays with this, and it helps her get roles, absolutely. It helps her land on covers, mostly of men's magazines, FHM, GQ, Esquire. So, yes, her looks have definitely helped her. Have they hurt her too? Sure, it is easier to discount someone who is beautiful. I don't know why, but it's something that we play with, and she loves pointing that out too.
By the time Megan started doing publicity for the Transformers sequel, the press was all over her.
It's for Megan.
For Megan?
This is to Megan.
It seemed like Megan's personal life was more interesting to reporters than the movie.
Sometimes it's liberating to read your interviews because you're quite outspoken. Anything that you said that you regret saying, and
You would like me to clarify it right now?
Sure.
Anything that I've ever said that I regret?
Like the first Transformers, Revenge of the Fallen was a blockbuster. But a controversy between Megan and the director was about to erupt. In 2008, Megan Fox was at the top of her game. Both Transformers films made hundreds of millions at the box office. Then, controversy.
She was asked a completely innocuous question about what's the best thing and the worst thing about working with Michael Bay.
She was talking about Michael Bay, and she actually referred to him as Hitler, which, you know, it doesn't float well with anybody.
She doesn't say anything about the good things about working with him, and she just says he's got a big ego, he's larger than life.
I like things where I can challenge myself and show the world, people around the globe a new kind of world.
Away from set, he's great, but on set, he has this controlling personality.
Then there were counter arguments from the folks who worked on the Transformers film saying that Megan was dumb as a rock, she was stuck up, that watching her act was excruciating. In response, Michael Bay said, you know what? I don't condone what the production crew said about Megan. I don't condone what Megan said about me. But you know what? Megan says things.
He said her crazy quotes are part of her charm, and he's looking forward to more crazy in the third Transformers.
It looked like Megan and Michael Bay patched things up. Then she started work on a film called Jennifer's Body.
She was the first person that we saw for Jennifer, and she was the only person that we saw because she embodied that character so perfectly.
When Megan was doing publicity for Jennifer's Body, she told a story about having had an affair with a female stripper.
She has an interview where she actually talked about having a bisexual relationship with a stripper named Nikita.
Of course, the press went wild, the internet exploded, and people were like, what? She's bisexual, what's going on here?
And, she started to fall in love with Nikita. She would get lap dances so that Nikita, she would get to know her better. She said she turned into basically a creepy middle-aged man who was in love with but trying to save this stripper.
And then she recanted it and said, oh no, I was just kidding. That's the kind of girl Megan Fox is. She is a big jokester.
She really enjoys making up these stories and playing with bisexuality and what that means to the media.
In my opinion, she was just kind of testing the press to see how far a story like that would go.
Why? Because it was a man that was interviewing her, and she knew that that's what he wanted to hear.
Maybe she's saying that for attention and trying to portray, the bad girl side of her. But she comes from a very good girl background. And so it's a dichotomy.
Calculated? If it was brilliant.
Not long after the story broke, Jennifer's Body hit theaters. In it, Megan shared a long kiss with co-star Amanda Seyfried.
It is genuinely kind of erotic and uncomfortable for the audience. I think that's what makes people want to talk about it. As much as people love it, they also are kind of squirming.
Megan wasn't afraid to fuel more gossip.
Playing with the bisexual theme more, She talks about the kiss that she shared with Amanda Seyfried. She said that she loved doing that and she feels safer with girls than she does with men, and it was the best kiss she's ever had on a movie. And Amanda wasn't that comfortable, but she was very comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, it's just awkward. It takes awkward to another level with doing a love scene with a female.
I think what Megan has created is this amazing fantasy world that really caters to the core of her audience. And she's fulfilling that.
That wasn't even in my talking points. I just made that up.
Megan is brilliant at manipulating the media. She knows exactly what she's doing, and that is the best part about her. She's not a stupid, pretty girl.
Being a sex symbol is almost like being a product, like a can of Coke or something. How much of that is fabricated, how much of that is real, I'd never be able to tell you. But it's very effective. She's a very interesting personality that way.
A week after Jennifer's Body came out, Megan poked fun of her sex symbol status on Saturday Night Live.
When I got the call that I'd been offered the spot to host SNL, I didn't really want to do it because I'm so terrified and just I become frozen when I have to speak in front of large crowds of people. But obviously you don't say no to something like that because it's an unbelievable opportunity.
They did a whole skit where they put her face on a bunch of different bodies to show how incredibly hot she really is. And they actually had her head put on animal bodies, which was absolutely ridiculous, but it's hilarious.
I'll never watch my episode ever. I can't. That gives me a panic attack thinking about it right now. Maybe like after I've had children and there are more important things in life, then I'll be able to sit back and watch it and go, who cares?
Megan Fox does not like to watch herself on screen. She is one of those actors that feels that she can't bring herself to watching herself on screen.
Megan scored big with SNL fans, but her movie Jennifer's Body was a different story.
Jennifer's Body, it did all right. It didn't do great.
The much-hyped movie did not live up to expectations, and Megan would soon find herself the object of ridicule among critics. By the time Megan Fox was 23 years old, she had already starred in 2 blockbuster hits, hosted Saturday Night Live, headlined an outrageous horror flick, and established herself as a sexy leading lady.
Much of her career thus far has been based on the way she looks, from the Michael Bay action movies to even Jennifer's Body, in which she was very funny. But it's all about Megan Fox looking a certain way.
Girls are really powerful, and I think it's been overlooked. The power of females have been overlooked in film for a long time.
She was named on every hot list, every Maxim magazine, this is the hottest girl around. And so she was even getting sick of hearing her own name. And she's the first to tell you that.
Have you ever been given a compliment and you just can't take it because you maybe don't agree with it, or you just are uncomfortable taking it? It's like that nonstop all day, every day. I'm just really embarrassed by it. If I told you you were the sexiest man I've ever seen in my life.
Well, tell me.
Megan knows how to use the media as a tool. At the same time, that tool can come back and cut you sometimes.
There almost started to become a little bit of backlash, where maybe Megan Fox was getting a little too much exposure.
Excuse me, please. Megan! Oh, guys. Megan, you're looking absolutely amazing. Follow me.
I think that she just feels like every little thing she says gets pulled out by a different blog or a different newspaper.
Oh my God!
Megan, please!
And I don't think she's wrong in thinking that. I think that that's how the entertainment news system works in a lot of ways.
I feel like everything that comes out of my mouth then becomes sensationalized by the media and becomes stamped controversial no matter how harmless I actually intended it to be.
To make matters worse, in 2009, Megan received 2 not-so-desirable Golden Raspberry nominations.
Megan Fox, a woman who, if Transformers had hood ornaments...
Could be one.
And an actress discovered by Michael Bay.
And we all know what great judge of acting he is.
Flailed by Fear.net, which vlog.
She can't deliver even one-line reading that doesn't sound like a late-night promo for a 1-900 Lonely Girl Hotline.
Razzie Awards, as they're often called, recognize the worst in film.
Nominated for both Jennifer's Body and
Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen.
How you doing, Megan?
Then, word got out that Megan wasn't going to be in the third Transformers film.
The first initial thought that everyone had was, well, obviously, Michael's just pissed off about what she said about him. Paramount came out and said, we decided not to renew her options. Megan Fox came out and said, he wanted me to gain 10 pounds. He wasn't happy with the way I looked. He was mean to me on the set before. She didn't want all of the abuse that she claims she got on set, so she walked off.
Now I think she's pulling back a bit and trying to be a little more authentic, a little more real in the way she talks about things.
A lot of other modern actresses are like watching train wrecks, but Megan is completely different. And it drives, I think, many in the media and the paparazzi crazy because they want to catch her doing something insane. And she may say insane things to the press, but she's actually very tame in terms of her personal lifestyle.
It only affects me personally when, I'm trying to do something that's private and personal and it's being interrupted by photographers. But other than that, my life is pretty much the same.
I think Megan Fox is a misunderstood actress, and I'm not saying that she doesn't play a role in that. I think she purposely makes herself misunderstood. And it's confusing for people, but it keeps them guessing, it keeps her intriguing. You don't see those pictures of her falling out of the limo, holding up her hand, blocking the flashes at night. She does keep her personal life compellingly uninteresting.
She's not out at the nightclub scene. She's tucked away with Brian and his son and kind of playing, the stepmom, if you will. Keeps her grounded.
In June of 2010, Megan and Brian got married in a small ceremony on the beach in Hawaii.
The dichotomy with Megan Fox just continues. I mean, here she is, this beautiful woman. She's perceived as this huge sex symbol, and yet in her personal life, she is very, very conservative. She's been with one guy, Brian Austin Green, for all these years.
Megan is very much a doting stepmom. She spent a lot of time with Cassius since he was 3 years old, and she'll pick him up from school, she'll read him bedtime stories, and sets up a very stable home life for him when he's with Brian.
Megan's quiet personal life comes as a surprise to many. And there are those who think her acting will also bring new surprises.
She's the first one to say that her acting abilities have not been very well displayed yet. She's had to run around and scream and look good in a tank top, and she hasn't had to stretch herself all that much. But I think the jury is a little out still on how long her career can last based on what her range is.
She's found major success on the big screen. She's got a big door wide open. When you look at what Megan has done so far in her career, but it's been built on a foundation of this amazing sex appeal that she has. But, you can't make a career just off of that and have this long-lasting sort of future in Hollywood. And I think Hollywood is saying, well, what else can you do? We still need to see her playing those roles where she's not wearing the short mini, she's not bent over the hood of a car. Nothing wrong with that, but what's the next chapter for Megan Fox? And I think a lot of us are waiting to see what it is.